On January 1st, 1956, Sudan, a land with a rich history and many different cultures, became free from British and Egyptian rule. This momentous occasion marked the end of a long struggle for self-determination and the beginning of a new chapter in Sudanese history. The streets of Khartoum were filled with jubilant crowds, waving flags and celebrating their newfound freedom. It was a day of immense pride and hope for the future. It was a big day and everyone was excited about making their own choices. The air was filled with optimism as people envisioned a future where they could shape their own destiny. Traditional dances and songs echoed through the streets, symbolizing the rich cultural heritage of Sudan and the unity of its people. But things weren't easy. There were problems within the country that threatened to cause trouble. The diverse ethnic and cultural landscape of Sudan, while a source of strength, also posed significant challenges. Disagreements and conflicts began to surface, highlighting the complexities of governing a newly independent nation. To handle these problems, Sudan's leaders created the Sovereignty Council. This council was tasked with the monumental responsibility of guiding the nation through its formative years. Comprised of representatives from different regions and communities, the council aimed to ensure that all voices were heard and that decisions were made collectively. This group of 5 people, each representing a different part of the country, was supposed to lead Sudan through its first years. They were seen as the guardians of the nation's newfound independence, entrusted with the task of building a stable and prosperous future for all Sudanese people. It was a time of hope, but also a time of big challenges. The council had to navigate a complex political landscape, balancing the aspirations of different groups while addressing the immediate needs of the nation. Economic development, social cohesion, and political stability were all pressing issues that required urgent attention. The council had the tough job of creating a shared identity for all the different groups of people in Sudan. This was no easy task, as the country was home to a multitude of ethnicities, languages, and traditions. The council's efforts to promote unity and inclusivity were crucial in laying the foundation for a cohesive national identity. The Sovereignty Council didn't last long, but it was important. Despite its short tenure, the council played a pivotal role in shaping the early years of Sudan's independence. It set the stage for future governance structures and highlighted the importance of inclusive and representative leadership. Sudan was poor, and it had problems caused by being ruled by others for so long. The legacy of colonialism left deep scars with underdeveloped infrastructure, limited access to education, and widespread poverty. The council faced the daunting task of addressing these issues while laying the groundwork for sustainable development. The council tried to build important government offices, write a constitution, and figure out how Sudan would work with other countries. These efforts were aimed at establishing a functional and effective government that could serve the needs of its people and engage with the international community. But arguments between different groups and tensions in different parts of the country made things difficult. The council's efforts were often hampered by internal divisions and external pressures, making it challenging to achieve consensus and implement policies effectively. The dream of a united Sudan without anyone interfering started to fade. As conflicts and disagreements persisted, the initial optimism began to wane, and the vision of a harmonious and prosperous nation seemed increasingly elusive. The Sovereignty Council struggled to keep everyone happy and the country together. The challenges of governance, coupled with rising tensions and unmet expectations, placed immense strain on the council and its ability to maintain stability. This uncertain time led to the army getting involved in politics, something that would happen again and again in Sudan's future. The military's intervention marked the beginning of a cycle of political instability and coups that would shape Sudan's history for decades to come. In 1958, General Ibrahim Abboud, a popular army leader, took control of Sudan without any fighting. This changed everything. The peaceful coup was seen as a new beginning for the country, which had been struggling with political instability and economic challenges since gaining independence in 1956. Abboud's takeover started a period of military rule, focused on making Sudan more modern and growing the economy. His government aimed to transform Sudan into a modern state capable of competing on the global stage. This period was marked by ambitious plans and significant changes in the country's infrastructure and economic policies. The Sovereignty Council was gone, and Abboud became the leader. He centralized power, believing that a strong, unified government was necessary to achieve his vision for Sudan. This move was initially welcomed by many who hoped for stability and progress. Abboud wanted Sudan to grow quickly. He envisioned a country that could stand on its own economically without relying heavily on agriculture. His speeches often highlighted the need for rapid development and modernization. He started big projects to build new things and make Sudan's economy stronger so it wouldn't depend so much on farming. These projects included the construction of new cities, industrial zones, and infrastructure that would support a diversified economy. He built dams, factories, roads, and other critical infrastructure. The dams were intended to provide much-needed electricity and water for irrigation, while the factories aimed to boost industrial production. Roads and railways were constructed to improve connectivity and facilitate trade within the country, and railroads to connect different parts of the country. These railroads were seen as vital for integrating the diverse regions of Sudan, making it easier for people and goods to move across the vast nation. These projects were meant to be good, but they also caused problems. The rapid pace of development led to significant social and economic disruptions. Many communities were displaced to make way for new infrastructure, and the benefits of these projects were not evenly distributed. Some people had to leave their homes, and others felt they weren't benefiting from the changes. The displacement caused resentment and hardship for many, while the economic gains were often concentrated in urban areas, leaving rural communities behind. Abboud also became more controlling. As opposition to his policies grew, he tightened his grip on power, believing that strong leadership was necessary to maintain order and continue the development agenda. He didn't allow different political parties, fearing that political pluralism would lead to instability and hinder progress. This suppression of political activity stifled dissent and limited the public's ability to participate in governance, stopped people from speaking out against him, implementing strict censorship laws, and using state security forces to silence critics. This created an atmosphere of fear and repression, and took away some freedoms. Civil liberties were curtailed, and many Sudanese felt that their rights were being eroded under military rule. While some people thought he helped the economy, many didn't like how he ruled. The economic benefits were overshadowed by the lack of political freedom and the growing inequality between different regions and social groups. The projects that were supposed to unite the country actually made some areas richer than others, and people got angry. The uneven development led to increased regional disparities, fueling discontent among those who felt left out of the economic boom. Students, workers, and educated people protested, demanding an end to military rule and a return to democracy. These protests grew in intensity, reflecting widespread frustration with Abboud's authoritarian governance and the unmet promises of economic development. Abboud's way of running the country didn't work. His failure to address the underlying social and economic issues, combined with his repressive tactics, ultimately led to his downfall. The mounting discontent culminated in a popular uprising, forcing Abboud to step down and paving the way for a new chapter in Sudan's history. In 1964, Sudan briefly returned to civilian leadership. General Abboud, facing lots of pressure from the people, stepped down. Sirr Al-Khatim Al-Khalifa, a respected government worker, became the acting president. His job was to help Sudan move towards a new government. Al-Khalifa's time as president, though very short, was important. He didn't want to stay in power, he just wanted to help create a democratically elected government. People trusted him, and he gave them hope. During his 18 days as president, Al-Khalifa worked quickly. He ended the Supreme Council, the symbol of military rule, and gave power to a new group of civilian leaders called the Committee of Sovereignty. This committee was in charge of organizing elections. Al-Khalifa is remembered for his commitment to democracy during a difficult time. His short time as president shows how important it is to have civilian leaders and follow the rules of the constitution, even when things are hard. He then gave power to the newly elected prime minister. In 1965, Ismail al-Azhari, leader of the National Unionist Party, became president after winning the election. Al-Azhari, an experienced politician who had fought for Sudan's independence, was supposed to bring stability and prosperity, but his time as president was full of problems. Al-Azhari took over a country with deep divisions and problems left over from colonial rule. The economy, mostly based on farming, couldn't support everyone. Many people were poor, and they didn't have basic things like healthcare and education. People were disappointed. Al-Azhari tried to unite the country, but it was very difficult. Political arguments got worse, and the country started to fall apart. The southern part of Sudan, which was poorer and less developed, felt ignored by the north, and some people there wanted to separate. Al-Azhari wanted to fix things, but he couldn't. There were too many problems, and he didn't have enough power as president to make big changes. This led to another military takeover. In 1969, Colonel Jafar Nimeri took control of Sudan in a military coup, removing Ismail al-Azhari from power. This marked the beginning of a significant shift in Sudan's political landscape, as Nimeri's rise to power was both dramatic and controversial. The coup was swift and decisive, catching many by surprise and altering the course of the nation's history. Nimeri's takeover started a new era, one with both big changes and harsh control. His regime promised progress and modernization, but it also brought about a period of intense repression. The initial enthusiasm for change was soon overshadowed by the reality of authoritarian rule. Nimeri quickly took charge, creating the National Revolutionary Command Council and making himself the leader. This council was meant to guide the country through a revolutionary transformation, but in practice it concentrated power in Nimeri's hands. He used this power to implement sweeping changes across the nation. At first, Nimeri focused on socialist ideas. He believed that socialism could bring about equality and justice in Sudan. His government promoted socialist principles aiming to redistribute wealth and resources more fairly among the population. He believed in sharing wealth and making things more equal. This included ambitious plans for community development and social welfare programs. Nimeri's vision was to create a society where everyone had access to basic needs and opportunities. He took control of banks, industries, and farmland. Nationalizing these key sectors was seen as a way to break the power of the elite and ensure that the country's wealth was used for the benefit of all Sudanese people. However, these policies also led to significant disruptions in the economy. Nimeri's policies, while meant to help people, faced resistance and caused economic problems. The nationalization efforts led to inefficiencies and shortages, sparking protests and unrest. Many Sudanese people struggled with the economic instability that followed these changes. In 1971, Nimeri officially became president. This formalized his control over the country and allowed him to further consolidate his power. His presidency was marked by both ambitious reforms and increasing authoritarianism. He created a new constitution and made the Sudanese Socialist Union the only allowed political party. This move effectively eliminated political opposition and ensured that Nimeri's government could operate without significant challenges. The new constitution was designed to reflect his socialist ideals. Over time, Nimeri's government became more conservative and focused on Islam. This shift was partly a response to the growing influence of Islamist groups within Sudan. Nimeri sought to align his government with these groups to maintain support and stability. He tried to make Islamist groups happy by making Sharia law part of Sudan's legal system. This decision was controversial and had far-reaching implications for Sudanese society. It was seen as a way to appease conservative factions, but it also alienated many people, particularly in the south. While there were times of economic growth and some stability under Nimeri, he also ruled with an iron fist. His government undertook various development projects, but these were often overshadowed by his repressive tactics. The promise of progress was marred by the reality of political oppression. He put his political enemies in jail, tortured them, or forced them to leave the country. Nimeri's regime was notorious for its human rights abuses. Dissent was not tolerated, and those who opposed the government faced severe consequences. His harsh rule made many people angry, especially in the south, where people felt Sharia law threatened their culture and religion. The imposition of Sharia law exacerbated existing cultural and religious tensions, leading to widespread discontent and resistance. The South became a hotbed of opposition to Nimeri's regime, highlighting the deep divisions within Sudanese society.